Hi there, Earth Nation. This is Amanda with the Activated Earth, and this is my Summit 2023, all about nature connection and how we do it and what it can do for us. I am here with Amy Dempster, and she has an incredible way of working with nature, and I'm going to read her bio about her right now so that you know what she's about. Amy Dempster helps in understanding the healing power of the earth. What began as openly sharing her spiritual journey on her popular blog, Following Hawks, has become a resource for others wanting to learn how to communicate with nature and share their own unique healing gifts with the earth. Together with the spirits of the land in the mountains of northwest Montana, she tends portals and stargates on the land where she lives, along with any grid-keeping work she is assigned. She also leads the Earth Tenders Academy, an immersive online journey to help others reestablish their connection with their ancient ancestors, learn to communicate with the seen and unseen forces in their environment, and respectfully offer their healing energy to places in need. Amy is also the host of the podcast, The Earth Keepers. So you're doing a lot for the earth. And what I would love to hear to begin with is how you got your name, Following Hawks. So you have a story of how hawks showed up in your life and how they led you to what you are doing now. Can you share that, please?
Yes, of course. It's so funny because that's, so many people find their way to me because they're having unusual hawk experiences. And when
I've
they go
had them
look it up,
myself. It was a similar experience. That's why I really want to hear yours.
yeah, absolutely. I think the hawks are definitely a part of our awakening process here on Earth. I think they're definitely participating. But yeah, quite a few years ago now, gosh, maybe 15 years ago or so, I started having hawks come to me in a very specific and close way, that they hadn't before. It wasn't like I hadn't noticed them in my environment or didn't see them while I was driving, but all of a sudden they started coming very close. Like I was, walking on just a trail in my suburban town one day, and I had one fly right in front of me and land on the tree right next to where I was, and just, stared at me eye to eye for an extended period of time. I was at home one day, reading my book. I was always alone when these things happen too, right? It was
Right.
never never anybody else to witness it but me. But at home reading, and I heard this big thud on the window, and so I get up to go look, and there's a hawk sitting on the fence, kind of right there, again, like eye level for me, kind of staring at me. I had another one where it came into a different part of the backyard, so it was enough, and it was often enough that I was starting to notice, like, this is kind of weird, and I keep seeing these hawks in my environment. And finally one day I had a vet appointment with our old dog, and he was not doing well, and I was having a bad day. I was sick. I had recently started a new job and was just kind of sitting there, just, I guess, feeling sorry for myself and thinking, like, maybe I've just done all of the wrong things. I'm feeling horrible. This job is exhausting. And here at the dog with the dog at the vet. And as I'm thinking that, this woman walks into the vet's office with a cage that's draped with a blanket, and she sets it down right next to my feet and goes up to the counter and says, "I'm here with the injured hawk." So literally, I mean, I think I probably said out loud, "You've got to be kidding me." Like, here's one's literally sitting inches away from me, indoors. And so it was really after kind of that I started saying, okay, there must be a message here. There must be, is someone who's passed away trying to communicate with me? Is this a message? What is this? Where is this coming from? And so that really was what kind of led me down this path, and led me to just ask some of these bigger questions about how nature was communicating with me, and why, and could I communicate back, which was one of my initial questions. And so quite a few years later, when I actually started my blog and thought that I wanted to have a name for it. Following hawks just
Mm.
seemed like the right term for it, because it really was, it was like they just started showing up and I just started following them kind of step by step, um, onto this journey.
Yeah, I really wanted to hear how it unfolded for you, because I've felt like hawks are spirit messengers. They're either saying, "Hey, follow me," like they did for you, or "Hey, we're affirming what it is that you're doing right now." So I love them. I've had a similar experience, and just inspired by the fact that somebody else is having the same energy with hawks. And you're now, after that journey, you are working with things like portals and stargates and the earth grid. I was wondering if you could explain what they all are and what that looks like when you do it.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a huge topic
Mhm.
to really cover, but ultimately it's all earth energies. It's all energies that are held either within or around the earth. And again, it's really been a step-by-step process for me where energies or different spirits or whatnot have come and either asked for my assistance or showed me something and said, "Can you help with this?" And so I've kind of figured it out as I've gone along and had these different experiences. But the Earth's electromagnetic grid is just that. It's really the electric grid that's held within the Earth. A lot of people will call them ley lines or energy lines, different kinds of things, and they're they've been used. We forget now that we're not in contact with the earth constantly like our ancestors would have been, that we think that we can't feel this energy or that it's not obvious, but it's just subtle. And if and when people kind of lived in connection with the earth on a regular basis, it was certainly something. And some people are more sensitive to these energies than others and can pick them up easier. But it really wasn't a difficult thing to notice, like, ooh, the energy shifts when I kind of cross this area. And or the energy is very heightened in this certain area where different grids are kind of coming together or crossing. And certainly over time, that is where different power centers have been built, usually churches,
Mhm.
but different places of worship or sacred places and different things. And it's just because all of this energy is very heightened there. And in those areas of heightened energy, you have more anomalies that, might happen in those locations. And people tend to find it easier in those very heightened areas to connect with other realms and other dimensions. And so certainly that's why churches would be there, right? Is that if you're going into a place for worship or into a place where you want to connect with the divine, that would be a great place to do it, just because the energies are heightened and it's easier to do that. And so usually churches were placed on top of places that were previously long-term sacred places. And so that knowledge and wisdom was really passed down for a long, long time over the generations. And so in those concentrated energy locations and in other places as well, you may find portals or vortexes. And I usually explain the differences. If a vortex is the highway, then the portal is the exit, right? So a portal just has a door, but otherwise, it's the same kind of energy. And I really see it as, the energy extending, down into the earth and then up through the surface of the earth and up, out into the cosmos. And so different portals have different purposes. They connect to different places in the universe, just in the cosmos. And so energies from outside of Earth can use those energetic doorways to come and go from the earth plane. And in my experience, the difference between being able to unlock a door or not, to really come onto this plane, is whether or not the energy matches the frequency of that portal. And so you need to be at that frequency or higher to be able to use the door to come into this earth plane. And so because I talk about portals a lot, I get a lot of questions about not so nice portals, which also certainly exist. But again, it's a frequency range. And so there are some that just are vibrating at a lower frequency for many, many different possible reasons. And when that's the case, then energies that match that lower frequency can use them to come onto the earth plane. And so you have kind of a wide variety of different kinds of things that could be happening, at an area where there's a portal.
Would you say that some of these portals, they offer energy for us to utilize during the Earth's transition process that's happening right now?
Sure, they absolutely can. Again, it kind of depends on the portal and depends on the energy and what's happening there. But a lot of them, again, are in these like very high vibrational places, and it's the earth itself is really supportive of those types of energies. But I think we've kind of been conditioned by TV and movies to think about time travel or portal travel or
Right.
teleporting or all of these things as moving your physical body from this place to that place. But really it's a lot more energetic, and it's really in order to travel in a portal or connect to another timeline, you're really just putting your consciousness into the portal and letting it go to wherever you might be able to go in a portal. And so that's a good way for people to kind of connect. And certainly you can connect remotely, so you could connect into another place that's not necessarily where you're physically located, and really through like shamanic journey or meditation, consciously interact with those energies and see what they hold for you.
Yeah. When you do a reading for the land, is the grid or the ley lines or the whatever people want to call it, is that something that you tap into to receive information, or does it come from other places, or both?
When I do a reading, I usually connect with what I call the keeper of the land. That's the spirit that I ask to come and meet with me initially. And the reason why is that the keeper of the land in a given location doesn't just oversee like your house, kind of oversees the neighborhood. It's different everywhere. Sometimes they'll show me, oh, I see this whole area, but usually it's at least the neighborhood. And then that keeper of the land, I will ask them, what's going on here? What do you want me to know about this place? Do you have any concerns? Those types of things. And that spirit will then take me or show me anything in that location that they want me to know, or they want to tell me, or they'll connect me with other spirits who are on the land who have something that they want to share. So it's not so much that I'm tapping into the specific energy of the earth as much as the spirits of the land that are living in that area and have things that they want to share.
Is there an example of one that you've done that people might be interested in hearing?
Oh goodness, where to begin? The one that's popping into my head right now, and it's just always fascinating to me how the spirits show me getting things done, because I think we are so worried about doing something right or messing something up, or I don't know what I'm doing, which I've spent a lot of time doing too, is saying I've never done that before, I don't know what that is, can you describe it to me, tell me more about what's happening. And that really, when we're trying to accomplish something, when we're doing energy work on the land, it's more about the intent of what you're trying to do. And then the method of how you get there is really just limited to your own imagination. And so something that happens often that I come across are just earthbound spirits on a piece of land. And so that's just, humans who have passed away. And for one reason or another, but usually not maliciously, usually on accident, they just don't get crossed all the way over, and they haven't returned to source energy. They're still kind of hanging around on this plane. And so oftentimes in readings, I'm opening a portal to let those spirits reconnect back with source. So this particular reading that I did was a couple of years ago, I think now, I connected with a location, and the keeper of the land that came to me was an ancestor of the land in that location. And he explained to me that there had been a very horrible battle that had happened in this location. And, long before Europeans had come to the area, and that it was, connected to tribes that lived in the area, and both sides had more or less wiped each other out. Like everyone died basically that was there. And so there were still, they just said there was nobody to help them go through the process because it was
Okay.
such,
Yeah.
a horrible battle. So there were all of these earthbound spirits that were there that the ancestors wanted to assist crossing over. They were their ancestors and their family members. And so I said, okay, well, what would you like me to do? And they said, well, we just want you to, call everybody together, which is a lot of times what they'll ask me to do. Just put the word out, like, hey, if you can hear me, come here. And so I did that. I did my part. And then they just wanted me to hold space. Oftentimes they'll, having that human link between, the physical and the non-physical can help things take effect in the physical. So sometimes we think, I'm
Yeah.
not doing anything, right? But they're saying just hold space, just be that bridge between, spirit and physical. And so in doing that, I really got to witness their ceremony and how they crossed their spirits over. And so it really was, they built this huge bonfire, and there was a lot of drumming and singing and dancing. And what I could feel really was just like that energy was getting heightened and heightened and heightened from all of this. And it was the smoke from the fire really that was opening the portal and carrying these spirits over. And so the method of how they did that was not something I had ever thought about, right? It wasn't a method that I have ever used, but it accomplished the same thing. And it was doing, you raise the frequency in order to open a portal, and then those spirits can cross over. And so I just thought that was a really beautiful example of sometimes just the things that we get to witness. And while we might be playing a role or participating, it's not always us doing the work or marching in to fix something. It's not. Oftentimes the spirits know exactly what needs to be done, and they are happy to do it, and they just want somebody from that physical plane to kind of hold that door open between those two sides.
Yeah, I've had that experience before too. Maybe probably not on that scale, just a few of the spirits, and then that were still earthbound in an area. And the feeling of the place really changed. What happened with that particular place?
Yeah, well, in that case, it was a reading that I did for somebody else in a place that I don't live. So, I don't get
They didn't follow up, they didn't tell you.
no, it's really so interesting. Sometimes people will follow up and let me know afterwards kind of what happened or how things feel, 30, 60, 90 days later. Because sometimes it's a kind of a gradual shift after the work's been done. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's really interesting. It's funny how some of these things happen. I did an unusual reading quite a few years ago now, where there was, I can't remember the exact details, but there was the people in the home were having a lot of disturbances in the home. And when I tuned in, it was like two timelines were kind of
Mm.
a little too close together in this. And so there was a medicine man in another timeline that was doing all of this energy work in his timeline. But it was like in this person's house in, you know, in this reality. And so
Right.
they were experiencing all this energy. And so I had asked him if he could move, you know, to the backyard or something, you know, some other location. So it wasn't quite in the house, and he agreed and was, oh yeah, okay, no problem. And I never heard from the people again, you know, afterwards. And I'm like, oh, that was really unusual. And I don't, you know, I don't know
It
if it
seems like
worked or
maybe
not.
not hearing from them says a lot. They weren't continuing to have a problem. They didn't complain, or they didn't say, hey, we need some more help.
Yeah, exactly. But
Yeah.
a couple years after that, through a really funny series of events, I was in traveling in Florida and teaching a class, and somebody who was in the class, she came in the morning and she says, "You're never going to believe this. I was at the farmer's market this morning, and I was chatting with one of the farmers or somebody, you know, that was there that she knew, and she mentioned she was taking this class, and the person says, I know who that is. Like, she did a reading for my family." And it was this whole, she said, oh my gosh, everything stopped afterwards. It was perfect. And I was like,
So you did
who
get feedback.
knew? So it was like 2 years later, you know, I found out that
Yeah.
you know, that everything, all the energy had calmed down, and everything was great. But yeah, you don't always get to know, if people don't follow back up afterwards, how
Yeah.
everything went.
Yeah. But that's an amazing story. I was wondering if the stargates, I think that when you were talking about portals and vortexes a few minutes ago, some of the portals that you said are attached to they're off world, right? And those would be the stargates. Have you found any of those to be I asked you a bit of a question about it then, but I want more clarity. I'd like to have more clarity around the Stargate. Why are they there? What kind of information have you received from them? And maybe there's one that you found that went to a place that really spoke to you. Could you share something about that?
Yeah, it's really interesting, and it's difficult for me even sometimes to really understand like the subtleties between you know, a portal that I might otherwise come across in a Stargate. My understanding is that really the energies on the earth have just significantly shifted, and in my experience it was the big grand conjunction that
Mm.
was at the winter solstice of 2020. That's when I noticed everything shift. That's when I noticed the portals, at least on the land here where I live, they all kind of merged together into this one Stargate. And so my sense is that Stargates are just kind of like a new Earth um, reality, right? Or a new way for energies to come and go. Because it used to be that the Earth was very closed off from the rest of the cosmos, and that there wasn't a lot of exploration or travel for beings to be able to come onto the Earth plane. And that really shifted. It was kind of like, you know, Earth is open for business again. We shifted timelines. And in doing that, there's this Stargate system that's around the Earth. But the other piece of it that's really interesting is that like we are Stargates, and there's a Stargate in each of our hearts, you know, through our heart centers. So it really just shows how we are portals as well, and how energies can kind of move in and out of Earth. And while that sounds a little unnerving, right? Like, wait, something can come through me. What I have really found is that this has allowed us to really connect into all of these other pieces of ourselves, and that these aren't just random entities, you know, for the most part, if you're energetically protecting yourself and keeping your energy field clear. It's not a random thing that beings are wanting to come and connect with you in that way. It's like the lock and key still, right? If the frequencies match, and this is another piece of you that's doing work out in the universe somewhere, right? So you might feel it as like, oh, that was a, you know, Pleiadian that came to speak to me, or this is some being from wherever. they're like all the other pieces of ourselves. And through that, we're getting to learn and experience things, and resolve things, right, in other timelines. And so really, that the piece of yourself in this, what we would call future, time in another place, is able to really kind of come through, connect with me and my energy here, leave some bit of information that I may need, collect some bit of information from the earth plane that they might need, and then move on. And so that's my sense of how these stargates are really interacting, is just giving us the ability to tap into all of these other times and places and share wisdom between ourselves that we weren't able to do, or we weren't able to do as easily before.
Yeah. What that sounds to me like is sort of the energy poking holes in
Mm.
the veil that of the illusion here of separateness, as well as the illusion of time and the layers of realities that all exist together. So that really speaks to me. Thank you so much for that definition, because I've discovered stargates too. I've come across them, and I haven't ever found one I didn't like. So that's really that's a beautiful way to describe it. And on that note, he had mentioned portals and how some of them weren't always so nice. What do you do with those?
Yeah, well, again, they, instead of thinking of them as good or bad, they really are just an energy field. But again, they exist at a certain frequency. And so if they, it's so funny, I always think, like, why are they always in closets? They always seem, it's like somebody always says, there's
Is it
this
the movies
this
that did that, or did they make the movies?
exactly. I'm like, why is it that people have creepy portals in their closets all the time? I don't know. But it's really, portals can, we are more powerful than we believe, right? We can open a portal. We can spontaneously open a portal. Although it does take a lot of energy if you're not doing it consciously, but usually the low vibrational ones are connected to, some sustained, really, sad, low vibrational energy. And so if you have a house where, somebody was in a deep dark depression for a long, long time, it's possible, it just, like, that energy kind of just builds up. And if it's not cleared out and not resolved, that, sometimes a portal that matches that energy can be opened in that location. And then it's the same thing. Like, if you just think about walking down a hallway and you're trying every door, left and right, trying to find one that's unlocked to go through, you have just untold number of weird beings out in the in the universe and on this plane. And they find a door finally that's unlocked and they walk right through. And so that's when people usually, when somebody says to me that they're having issues in their house with beings that they don't like coming and going, but it's not just the same being, right? There's people usually who are like, no, I have this one ghost in my house and this is its name and whatever. That's different than every day there's different ones. I clear the house and a whole bunch more show up. Like, that's you. There can be a few other things, but that's usually a portal when that's happening, or it's usually my first thought. And so in order to shift that, you need to shift the frequency in the house or in the space where these portals are, just so that it raises the frequency to be a match with different types of beings. And so it's possible to close the portal, but I always ask about that, because sometimes the portal is useful and necessary for something. It just needs to be at a higher frequency, so the annoying things aren't coming through. Moving a portal, I have very limited success with. A lot of times the spirits will say, yeah, it's fine, you can move it. And then, like, a week later, it moves back.
I've had that same experience. It just didn't work.
Yeah. And it's hard to find another location that's not going to bother
Yeah.
something else anyway.
We
So
tried to put it in a tree that we thought could handle it and hold it, but no.
yeah. Yeah, I had one at an office I worked at once, and I kept trying to move it to the park that was like across the street, and it only lasted like a week, and it would come back. So,
Yeah.
so usually I say I don't know what it is about moving, but moving doesn't seem to work all that well. So, so yeah, you can energetically close a portal if it's not needed, or it's not serving a purpose, or it's not being used. And that's one way to do it. And then if not, either raising the frequency, which I just say, like, think of all the things that that would make you feel better, that would, make a space feel better. But usually like playing solfeggio frequencies in the space for, a couple of days, you know, clearing, using whatever kind of clearing type things, whether it's essential oils or, smoke from plants, or playing singing bowls, or any of those types of things that's going to shift the frequency of the space. After a couple of days, usually that'll do it, and that'll shift the energy. The other option is to call in a guardian spirit specifically for that portal, and you can say, please, can you be the gatekeeper of this portal, and make sure only high vibrational energies come through. And that oftentimes, where I've had people tell me lots of times that after they did that, like, that resolved the problem. So those are usually my kind of go-to methods for portals like
Okay.
that.
I don't think I've ever tried to do that with a portal before. The reason why I ask is because my grandparents had a house that was just, it attracted everything, and it wasn't okay. I mean, it was okay. It just was uncomfortable. Like somebody was watching you all the time.
Yeah.
But one year we went there, and it had gotten that it was different. It wasn't like it was ancestors, family members or friends anymore. It was like something had taken it over. Yeah. So
And that happens,
yeah.
there's just beings out there that have their own agendas. They're not connected with source, and they're doing whatever it is they want to do. And so when they find an opportunity like that, yeah, I
Yeah.
have definitely come across that before, where beings are like, this is my place now. And
Right.
you got to
We
deal
were
with
just
them.
kids, so we didn't know what to do with it.
Right. Of course not.
Yeah. I know we've kind of gotten really into the whole, like, what are the magical unseen things that are there, that are in nature, as in regards to where you live and the land that you're on. How do the portals and the grid and all of the nature magic there, how do they support you?
Oh, well, I mean, it's just so beautiful, all of the beings that are here, whether they're on the physical or non-physical plane. And they have a lot of ideas and opinions for what should be happening. They live here too, so really remembering to consult them, and keep them in conversation about either any plans that we have for the land, or just asking them, what needs to be here, what wants to be here, and letting the land become what it wants to be, instead of kind of exerting my will on it in that way. And they're just, they're such beautiful teachers, and have so many lovely messages to share. And so it really, I mean, it's a daily conversation, whether it's hey, what's happening with this plant over here? It doesn't look so good. Is there something that it needs? Or it's the solstice and I'd love to do a ritual. Would you like to participate? What should I do? What should be on the altar? All different levels and ways that we interact and support each other.
Nice. I would love to talk about the water there. It's a place that we have in common. I've only been there once, but I would love to hear what the water, like the Flathead River, the Flathead Lake, how does it speak to you? What did it share with you? For those
Oh
who don't
my, well.
realize, Amy's in Montana.
Yes, yes. And in fact, and so there is a mountain in Glacier National Park, which is only about well, the entrance to it is only about 20 minutes from where I live. But there's a mountain there called Triple Divide Peak. And from the top of that mountain, water flows in 3 different directions. And so it goes to both the Pacific, the Atlantic, and the Gulf, ultimately, right, going from one waterway to another. And so, sometimes they say this, the park and this location is the water tower of the world, right? Like what happens here with the water and with the snowpack and the melt and the runoff and whatever pollution, it touches and all of those things, like it's going to find its way everywhere in the world. So, what happens here really does impact a great number of people and ecosystems and plants and animals and everything else. And so one of the ways the water flows out of Glacier is down into the Flathead River, which, comes down through the city of Kalispell and ultimately empties into Flathead Lake, which is the largest freshwater lake west of the Mississippi. It's about 53 miles long, I think. And so it's a beautiful big lake. And as you might imagine, just, the centerpiece to this entire valley where I live, and is used by many people for, recreation, agriculture, then of course the animals and the birds and everything that's supported here. And so it's been really interesting. I have been called on to work with the water many different times, and some of it is more subtle, and it's just come bring an offering, come play your singing bowl, come tone to us, different things, again, all things that like raise the frequency and shift the energy. But one of the big kind of projects that the spirits here have asked me to do, and this has been a couple of years ago now, and was kind of an education for me as well, about, for lack of a better term, I call them AI devices. And they're really energetic devices, again, they're in another plane. We can't see them with our physical eyes. You can, if you tune into them, can see them, with your third eye. And so that was what happened. They called me to the lake a couple years ago and showed me that there was this big device that was hovering over the lake, and it kind of had these like tentacle like arms that went out and were anchored on the land on either side. And they explained to me that really it was like a projection, that it was or it was like a movie projector. And so it was showing us an image of what was there, the lake, but keeping us from fully engaging with the natural energies of the lake. And so and they asked me to assist them in removing it. And it took me about maybe a month or so of going to these different locations that they kind of pointed out to me on a map, and working with the energies there to release and send this device off back to source for recycling. And I really felt a big shift on the lake after that. Before that, I had just always felt like an uneasy feeling when I was out, on a boat on the lake. Something just that I couldn't put my finger on, but it just always felt a little nervous and unsettled and uneasy. And that all went away after doing that. And I realized, like, yeah, I was kind of engaging with the simulation, right? So there was some part of me on a core level that was like, something's not right about this. This isn't the actual energy here. And so it's just always so fascinating to me, kind of all of these different things that are happening, that are affecting us here on this plane, but that might be kind of anchored in the non-physical, in the way that we can kind of, again, bridge that gap to assist with those things.
Do you think that that we call in some of that stuff and clutter up our space with it a little bit?
I think my sense is that there's lots and lots of different things that are happening. And that's usually what I say, especially when I do a reading and
Mhm.
people say, well, I think this is what's happening, or, my house is haunted or whatever. Usually there are layers of things happening, and it's like peeling back an onion. Like you've got to deal with the first thing, and that has one source and one reason why it's happening, but then you find another thing, and you gotta kind of sort that out. And so yeah, I mean, I think in general, when you look at whether it's where you live or a lake or those types of things, especially a big public place like that, right, there's lots of people's energies that have
Yeah.
participated, and mingled and been in that space. And so just on our level, we have a lot of energetic junk that we leave behind or we call in, or whatever the case may be. But then outside of that, yeah, there are other energies, whether again, the ones that are here to help and assist us, and some others that who knows what their agenda is, right? Like why a projection of the lake would be there. And so some are put in places purposefully for one reason or another. And so I just think, when their time has come and they're no longer needed, or they're causing problems or whatever, that you know, they'll call in people that they hope will assist in
Yeah.
resolving the energy there.
Yeah. And I'm assuming that because you have this Earth Tenders Academy, um, and you as an earth tender, that's really what you're doing. You're taking care of the planet and um, looking for places where there are problems or discord. And is this academy a place where people can come to learn to do the kind of work that you do?
Yes, exactly.
Tell us about
Yes,
it.
because obviously I am but one person. So I love sharing this with others, and everybody has their own unique way of doing things. So I like to say in the Earth Tenders Academy that I'm kind of sharing the framework and the big picture. And so a lot of what we go through is um, exploring your own community and your own, space around your home, because when you start connecting with the spirits there, they want to talk to you about the water. So you need to know, like, where does the water come from? They want to talk to you about trauma that's happened on the land. And so, so some of it is just going through some exploration about, what more you can learn about the place that you live and the energies that are there. But then, yeah, we get into meeting the spirits of the land. Who are they? What might they want to talk to you about? And then we get into these different earth energies, because that's really been my experience, is that these are all the different things you come across, things like timelines and how they work, and portals and how they work, and all of those different things help us understand. Then when we connect somewhere and a spirit is talking to us about these things, we go, oh, okay, I understand how that works. And so we really go through all of those topics, and then culminate with, here's how to do a reading, here's how to do healing work, here are the specific methods for doing these things. But I always encourage everyone to find their own ways, because we all have our own special talents and gifts, and the way I do it may be totally different than the way you do it. So it's my hope to kind of guide people through finding and discovering that
Yeah.
for themselves.
Is there a way that you have for say you're dealing with a person who has they've never even thought about, like, how do I connect and listen? How do you show them how to open up and start to build the connection? I mean, I know we're always connected. We don't recognize the connection. How do you teach that?
Yeah, well, it really is. It's being able to tune in to the subtle, and the world we live in, like, clobbers us with a sledgehammer, right? Like the frequencies that are around us, whether it be the Wi-Fi and all of the electricity and all of these different things, are just there. Even though we may not notice them, they are heavy effects on our energy field. And nature is so, so subtle. And so I always encourage people, like, start going for regular walks, leave the phone behind, don't even have it in your pocket, just leave it behind, and really set your intention to notice and communicate with any beings that might want to connect with you on your walk. And what you realize is you might just see a really beautiful flower, or, feel a connection to a particular tree. And because nature communicates telepathically, it doesn't just all of a sudden usually come into our head in like fully formed words and sentences and pictures. For some people, it does. Most people are more feelers energetically. And so it's a matter of understanding what those feelings feel like and how subtle they are. And so the more time you can spend outside, I always say, like, however long it would normally take you to, walk around your block, do it half as fast or a quarter as fast, and really, stop, look at things, notice things, because that is communication. That is a plant talking to you saying, look at how beautiful I am. I'm blooming right now, right? And so it's in those initial noticings that you're really kind of letting those around you know that you are open to that communication.
Yeah.
And then really finding other ways to, I guess you could say, channel, the messages. And so again, everyone has kind of a different way that works for them. And so, like, I like to write. So, you could just go find a spot in a park, put a blanket out, have a notebook, and just anything that pops into your head, just write it down. Sounds, this doesn't seem to make any sense. Doesn't matter, write it down. Just get used to kind of, oh, something popped into my head, I write it down. And over time, that can be like an automatic writing process where those spirits can share with you. But other people might paint or draw, somebody else might sing. They might really feel like, ooh, when I'm by this tree, I want to sing. Let that move through me. And so we have to kind of let go of the idea of needing the information to come to us in a certain way, and start noticing the ways that it does come to us. And in my experience, then the more you practice at it, the more you do it, the more it starts becoming like, oh, I have a full story in my head. Oh, I have a picture now. I have, they do start communicating with you in those ways, but kind of have to open the channel first and get used to how it comes to you.
I really love the way you said that. I think that's going to be understood by everybody who's listening. I enjoy your eloquent way of fully explaining something that you can't see. And I was wondering if, before we close, if there's anything else we haven't covered that you would like to talk about.
Oh, I don't think so. I think we covered a lot.
Did.
A lot of really big topics.
Yeah, we did. We really did. In that case, then how can everybody find you? What is your contact information?
Yeah, well, my website is followinghawks.com, like the bird. So you can find me in all of the things that I do there, but I'm also Following Hawks on Instagram and YouTube. And I have a podcast called The Earth Keepers, where I share lots and lots of different kind of personal stories that have happened to me on this journey of exploration. And yeah, you can come find me in any of those places.
Great. And all of those links and ways to contact Amy are going to be included in the email with her conversation. So please reach out to her if she's speaking your language. I know and I know you're speaking mine. And I wanted to say thank you so much for being here. So much that you've affected my throat chakra. So thank you so much for being here, Amy. I'm just grateful, and I feel blessed by everybody, and blessed that your work is out there and that there is somebody taking care of the planet like you do. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Amanda. Thank you for having me, and I enjoyed our conversation.
It's been my pleasure.